Hi, and welcome to the Stay Rich podcast. On this podcast, we're going to have successful entrepreneurs coming on to teach us about how they live a rich lifestyle and give tips and motivational strategies to navigate the world. And in addition to that, we're also going to be interviewing high-level, extremely killer, competent divorce attorneys who are coming onto the show to tell us their war stories, to tell us all of the things that you as a man should not be doing if you are going through a divorce today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stay Rich podcast with my very special friend, author, ghost author, and expert, Joshua Lisec. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan. This is going to be fun.
I'm so excited to have you on. I know I've been setting this up with you for months. And finally, we have the opportunity here. We're in beautiful, sunny Fort Lauderdale. It is hot as hell. And I think both of us are sweating right now, even though the studio is air conditioned and everything's great. But we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful discussion about everything to do with ghostwriting, everything to do with your life, how you got into ghostwriting, and any of the questions that may pop into your head right now. So with that, Joshua, tell me how you got into ghostwriting.
Oh, well, I got into ghostwriting completely by accident. Typically, one doesn't decide to become a ghostwriter. Ghostwriting decides to become you. That was the case with me. As a kid, I wanted to write novels, particularly fiction and stories that would mean something to people and would give them a break from everyday life and edutain them. Okay, I was entranced by this material, and I also learned something about myself. That's what I wanted to do. And I was 20 years old, 21-ish, and lo and behold, I got myself a very small publishing deal for an action-adventure novel series that I'd started writing. And one thing leads to another, and I'm signing copies, and I'm meeting fans, taking selfies with flip phones where you had to, like, turn it around, right? And it was always off-center and at a funky angle. And that's when something strange happened. And the strange thing that happened was two of my readers, they both said the same thing to me. Now, they were about my grandparents' age, roughly older baby boomers. And they both said, Joshua, I've wanted to write a story about my life longer than you've even been alive. And here you went and lapped me and wrote 2 books. Can you help me write my life story? To which I'm thinking, write like an autobiography, like you just start writing it, right? Oh, no, Joshua, you don't understand. I don't want a Wikipedia article about my life. I want it to read like your novel. Oh, I think I get it now. That's a memoir. Yes, do me one of those, Joshua. And I said, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book. And that was 14 years ago, and I've been saying, okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book for almost 110 books now.
Oh my God. 110?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And I'm really pleased to get to know you because one of those 110 was mine. I mean, you helped me write How the Rich Get Divorced and Stay Rich. It's one of the reasons it's so successful is because it speaks to people. I don't know quite how to describe that. I mean, I know I'm trained in persuasion. I know that I'm trained in how to speak, how to write, how to do these things, but getting it to the point that it's actually interesting, edutainment, if you will. How do you do that across a wide berth of subjects?
I do also like to introduce into my work some techniques I've learned from hypnosis. I'm certified hypnosis. I have some training and some background in that, which unironically I accumulated by ghostwriting 6 books on hypnosis first.
No kidding.
Learning about the methods and the techniques and thinking, oh, shoot, this is really good. You mean you can subconsciously tweak someone's beliefs, alter their behaviors, and give them new benefits in their life or in their career or profession that they had thought not possible to access? Cool. And then I began using some of those techniques. And one of those, of course, is to build rapport, which is what a hypnotist does with their client at the very beginning of a session. And if a book is akin to that, then the opening chapters are for building rapport and creating induction, deepening the trance-like state. And therefore, in my mind, a nonfiction book is a long-form self-hypnosis script. and needs to be written like one. And so the sorts of things that create friction between a hypnotist and their patient would also create friction between the author and the reader. Anything that pulls them out of the flow or kind of glitches them and makes them go, why did they say that? I don't get that. I don't know where she's going with this. I don't know what he means by that. All of those need to be, the kinks need to be ironed out, so to speak, inside of the material. So when I'm interviewing someone like you to get your stories, your experiences with clients, and your subject matter expertise, I have to run it through the hypnotist's filter of what do people need to hear, what else they need to hear, in what order do they need to hear it, or in this case, obviously, read it, and are there supplemental facts, statistics, data that they can now use to logically justify your views and your insights that to them might otherwise be seen as opinions.
Mhm.
And it's not just you, it's every nonfiction author. It's sort of like making the persuasive case that they should believe everything that they're reading. And so it's not just the content, it's the context around it that can make a good book into the greatest one that's ever been authored on that topic.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, I mean, it sounds like to me, and you're the expert, so correct me if I'm wrong here. It sounds like there's sort of a given formula that people have when they're reading something or they're going through this process where they go, A, B, C, D, E. And part of what you're doing is almost mind mapping what that looks like. So, if we're starting at A, the next question or the next thing that's going to pop into that reader's head is B, and then the next thing is C. And you're charting the book and how it's written based on that path.
Yes, and it's a bit like dominoes or like a GPS turn. I like to think of it as dominoes because the one knocks down the other, knocks down the other, and all the way to the end. And so if the end of the book is the last domino, what had to have come before that? Well, what had to have come before that? So you work your way backwards from the very end. Now, in the case of your book, the end of the book is not the last domino. Getting on your firm's email newsletter list,
Mhm.
booking a session with you, converting the reader from a reader into a sales qualified lead for your firm. That's the sort of like, I guess you could say, specialization I have with nonfiction, business, industrial, and expert books. Is there a powerful sort of a speed funnel to get prospects converted into sales qualified leads contacting the firm of the author?
Mhm.
And they then, when they reach out, they're thinking, I literally read the book on the subject. This is the only person I should be talking to.
Mhm.
So they have that rapport, that trust, that perception of credibility, that thinking, I will do whatever this man says because I read his book. And that then raises your profile and your value in the eyes of the clientele. And so if you don't got a book, then you're frankly you're sort of behind the one who does in your industry. And of course, you are the first, so you have the first author advantage.
That's true. And I mean, I can say from experience, like even looking at my book, I know I only released it a couple months ago. I think if I'm off the top of my head, probably 10% of purchases have reached out to me personally and have booked consultations, which is,
Excellent.
I think, a pretty high rate. I don't know if that's common or uncommon, but it seems high to me.
It's pretty close to what I've experienced myself for my own clients. So I do in fact practice what I preach. So I have my own book that sort of lays out how I think about how I think, or here's a book about books. And I get the same thing where I use that as a way to convert readers into inquiries, frankly. And
Mhm.
so it serves the same function for me. And so it's always good when you're practicing what you're preaching and what you're preaching actually works for you too.
Yeah, and that's a best-selling book.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, it's so hard to even get traction in this day and age where everybody can write a book. Everybody can just look things up on the internet. They can chat GPT a subject. They can look it up on Grok or Gemini or whatever the hell it's called. What's the difference that having sort of a human touch to it? what difference does that make in writing a book versus just using AI to write it or AI to answer questions? How does that work?
What I always tell authors, and I think I told you this as well at the very beginning, that your book must contain ungoogleable, unchat GPTable information. And so the stuff that can be found, Google, Grok, Jet, GPT, AI, anything in a matter of seconds, we can briefly, but only briefly, summarize that material and say something like, here are some things you probably already know. And then that's the book that most people would have written in your shoes. Oh, don't need that. Time for the good stuff. And that's when you are now perking readers up and they're going, oh, this is not the usual book. This is different. And it's that little bit of, ooh, I don't know what he's going to say next. And that excitement, that even that arousal, you might say, hypnotists induce in their patients or in their clients at the very beginning of a session.
Mhm.
And they kind of get excited because they don't know what the hypnotist is going to say next. And that same experience is recreated in the long form hypnosis script that is a nonfiction book. And that's key. I didn't know he was going to say that. I didn't expect this. But the question that's always in every reader's mind as they're reading, when they begin reading, is what's in it for me? Meaning, what's the next thing the author's going to say? And is that worth my time? Rather than scrolling on social media like X or opening up TikTok or YouTube and just doom scrolling the videos or checking my email newsletter inbox or doing whatever. There's so much competition that authors now have to contend with that if you're going to get someone for 4, 5, 6, even 7 hours to read your book, you have to use all of the subconscious persuasion tools in the toolbox to get them to read as much of it as possible so that they go onto your website and book a consult with you and blah, blah, blah. And then it serves its purpose.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't think well, on the bright side, nobody's contacted me and said, your book trained me to be like a chicken. It's not like there's something like that. But what is it? Hypnotism is such a loaded word. I mean,
Yes.
people are used to it in this sort of weird context of you get on stage and act like a bozo. What does it mean in terms of practical form?
Yeah, there's two kinds of hypnosis. One of them is the one you're describing where it's sort of like a mentalist or a magician, an illusionist, kind of like a show, basically. The kind of hypnotist or hypnosis rather, that I am certified in and that I've practiced and that I've written about for previous clients is clinical hypnosis. It's a bit like talk therapy meets guided visualization and a private meditation session. You imagine all three of those together. That's what a real clinical hypnosis a session is like. And the most common reasons the public goes to see a clinical hypnotist, I want to stop smoking. I want to lose weight. I want to sleep better. I want to stress less. I want to stop drinking. The vices and the stresses. And those are the most common reasons that the public reaches out because they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked.
Okay.
And so when they reach out to the hypnotist, they're like, I just want to stop eating, or I want to stop overeating. I want to stop smoking. I want to stop, staying up till 4 in the morning or whatever. And then the hypnotist will then ask them, well, what do you want instead? No, you don't understand. I want to stop smoking. Okay, but if you wanted to do something else with that time instead, what would it be? And now their brain has now begun to process something that they haven't actually thought about before, which is, oh, I thought I wanted to stop smoking, but then the brain is now focused, the subconscious mind, that is focused on smoking. So the subconscious mind is now zeroed in on the thing you don't want it to do, which is thinking about smoking 24/7, which is why it's so difficult for people who are in that sort of, I want to break this habit and I just can't seem to, no matter what I do. It's because you're entirely focused on the thing you don't want to be doing. Along comes the hypnotist, breaks that pattern with these questions at the very beginning of the session. What do you want to be doing instead with that time? Well, I guess I would maybe pick up the piano again. And then what would happen if you started playing the piano again? Well, I guess, and then question after question like this at just the very beginning of the session unlocks a new life that's better than their life as a smoker. And then, okay, you can sit back and relax now. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, you'll notice your eyelids beginning to get up. And then they go through some of these techniques to get them super relaxed and chill and zen in the chair. And oftentimes they will actually lean back and recline and sometimes fall asleep, but the subconscious mind is still listening. And the hypnotist will then, based on the words of the patient or the client, they will then work those into a script of suggestions. They then sort of tell a story about the new life the person's now able to begin living. And you now have the identity of a non-smoker. The subconscious mind can't tell the difference between imagination and reality because it's all going through the same set of processing. Your mind's eye,
Mhm.
right? That's where your brain is seeing something. And the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what you've imagined having seen and actually seen. And so the hypnotist, while you're in that trance-like suggestible state, which, by the way, people are in when they're reading.
Okay.
That's where the similarity of the trance-like state is. And you can get in there and give suggestions to have the new identity and new behaviors and new possibilities, new opportunities of things that you want. And then for those patients for whom this works, it took really well, they wake up. And here's the key. In this example, it's not that they're thinking, oh, wow, I'm thinking about cigarettes again. I think I have the willpower now. I don't think I think I can, resist. When hypnosis takes, the person comes out of the trance and they don't even think about cigarettes anymore. They might have it in their pocket and they don't even think about it. They go to their car like, oh, where's my keys or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, what's this? Cigarettes. Oh, what the hell is this doing in here? And then toss it. And then it's like it's completely changed and transformed. And those immediate potent change techniques. Again, they don't always work 100% for everyone, disclaimer. Well, when they do work, it's almost magical. And I do whatever I can to introduce that same magical experience of belief transformation and behavioral alteration through the trance-like experience of reading an emotionally compelling book with multisensory language worked in to allow, in the case of your book, readers who are stressed and anxious about an otherwise very difficult time of life, imagining it going easier than they thought possible. Imagining if it went faster and you kept more than you thought you were going to keep. And what's really important to you, you were protected, and I helped you along the way. And imagine just a few months from now and now I'm quoting your book.
Mhm.
What does that sound like? That sounds like a professional hypnotist guiding their patient through the experience.
Yeah, it's almost like leading somebody who's in a position of difficulty into it's giving them agency to make change again. It's giving them the ability to almost take the wheel, take the proverbial wheel, and sort of get back behind the driver's seat and be confident enough just to go forward with life. In the case of a divorce book, which is hugely important, just reimagining how things are and not listening to this sort of defeatist mentality that's so prevalent in the space and go, oh, you know what? This is actually probably for the best. Actually, I'm sure this is for the best because the marriage wasn't going that well. The kids and stuff. I'll be a better parent because of it, because we're not going to be combating all the time. It's not going to be like this crazy, terrible energy between the mom or the dad and myself. It's going to be a much more cooperative environment and the kids are going to benefit from that. Is it ideal? No, it would have been better, I guess, if we stayed together, but it wasn't meant to be. So I'm just going to move into a much more positive direction.
Yes, and it's not that necessarily that the person is like in a state of happiness. They're different emotional states that you want to bring someone to. And in the case of this, it's like the state of being okay. Like, I'm okay. And when you're okay, you're able to make logical decisions. You're able to think for the best. You're even able to think about the best interest of the other party and even advocate for their interest on their behalf, even if they're being combative. And
Mhm.
so, well, I'm doing right by them as best that I can because you're okay. And the emotional state of things is so critical because it's in the state of okay where someone can best learn something new and apply something new, do something new. That if they're frazzled and anxious and just reading horror story after horror story, which is what they're finding on Google,
Yes.
in confusion, and this says this, but this says this, you can cut through the confusion and the anxiety. And like a clinical hypnotist, in a way, speak new possibilities into their life and into their subconscious and alter their beliefs so that they can be very simply okay. And then go to your website, contact you, and hire you.
In my case, it's not okay. It's stay rich. But we work with that. I mean, even rich as a term, I think about it as a quality. And in the book, it's described as a quality. It doesn't necessarily need to be the quantity of money, because money's not the only thing that's important in a divorce case. But let's talk about a rich life and staying rich after a divorce, after going through it. And that was something that you picked up when we were going through this process so quickly, is that, oh, this isn't just a money book.
Mhm.
This is a life book. What has been your experience writing with other authors? Have there been sort of like really topics that you're uncomfortable with that you had to kind of get your head around, or has it all been sort of easy breezy? Everybody's on the same page and happy.
The learning curve for me was really steep early on, probably the first 30 books or so, 20 to 30, maybe the first couple, two, 3 dozen books,
Mhm.
because that batch I was writing for the first time ever on each of those topics, which had a wide variety. There was a book on like thyroid health and dealing with the after effects of thyroid cancer. And then there would be a book on large telescopes in outer space for for a company affiliated with a defense contractor. And then there'd be something that was about a certified personal trainer. It was like special fitness routine for women over 50. And then there'd be one about hormonal health. And then there'd be one about digital marketing funnels for law firms. It was this wide variety of niches within niches. And each of them had a real steep learning curve. But then the second book that I wrote on women's hormonal health, I'm able to use all like the research and the context and the experiences and know what readers resonated with from that success of that previous author. And so the expertise kind of builds upon itself. And now I joke that when an author reaches out to me about the book they want to write, oh no, no, no. I tell you what book you are going to write. And then you pay me to write that for you. And most of the time the author is like, shoot, that's way cooler than what I was thinking about writing. Can you write that book for me? After I've given them my feedback of, that's nice, but I think you should write this book instead. And it's not that I had that book already in mind or I was preconceived. It was they started sharing with me when I ask questions like, so what do you want your book to do for you? I'm talking to them like a hypnotist, right? And so I hypnotize them just a little bit
Mhm.
into wanting to write a different book, one that I believe is going to benefit their careers better. Oh, I want to write a memoir about my stories, and my life, and it'd be a good book for my kids. And that's the equivalent of like, I just want to stop smoking. Okay, but what do you want the book to do for you? How will you know the book was successful? Oh, well, I hadn't thought about that. I guess a year after the book has come out, when I look back, that's like timeline therapy from
Yeah.
hypnosis. I ask these kinds of questions. And then I say, you're telling me that you want the book to impact this group of people, to make this decision differently, and you want to reach this many people through a book, right? Yes. Then the only book that makes sense for you to write is here's your title and your subtitle. And what I learned in hypnosis is that when you put a name on something or a label to something, it becomes real. It goes from abstract to concrete. And so I like to, as often as possible, give the aspiring author the title and subtitle of their book in our very first conversation. Where
Okay.
they haven't even hired me. There's no paperwork. There's not even a quote or anything. I tell them, and then there's usually like a kind of a jaw-dropping moment. Wow, I want to be the author of that book. And often I'll make sure there's a little bit of a clickbait vibe to the title, where it's like, I don't know if I could write that book and fulfill that promise, Joshua. Oh, well, you came to the right place, didn't you? And then I'm able to sort of pitch them, and I have pretty good success in these sales conversations. But my perspective is, this is the book for you to write. Whether you have me write it or not, this is the one. And sometimes they will go off and try to do it themselves, and it'll turn out great, even better than what they were going to do before, write their life story memoir that nobody wants to read, frankly.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever picked up somebody's random memoir and thought, gosh, I really want to read this.
Yes.
And they could have lived an incredibly interesting life, but if it's just like a name and then, my story, I got to dedicate hours to this.
Yeah.
And I don't think people, as much as we're bombarded with this sort of need for attention, I don't think people understand the demands of getting someone's attention and what you're competing with. Because, I mean, even just for a normal person, I mean, you're competing with work, you're competing with their home life, their kids, their mom, their dad, their wife, their husband, their, whatever. Right. And on top of all that, you've got friends, activities, hobbies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's such a huge competition just to get somebody to sit down for an hour and read something. And you seem to be able to break that barrier. And there's got to be some other magic to this other than, I mean, I get hypnosis, I get all this stuff, and I think it's great, but what's sort of the extra panache that Joshua Lisec brings to the table as well?
One thing that I think it is based in this reframe that I like to use, which is another word from hypnosis. That practice works its way into my world quite often. And the saying goes, writer's block is real, ghostwriter's block is not. I'm usually working on between 2 and 6 books at any given time at the same time. And what that does is it keeps me in something close to a perpetual flow state where there's not, I wonder what I should write about for this book. It's like, no, I have to write this full chapter today. I have 90 minutes. Go. And it's that you're on now. It's like it's sort of like high performance mode that has to kick in
Mhm.
because I don't have time to waste. I don't have time to goof off. And I have been able to shorten the amount of time it takes to get into that flow state of just going for it and creating something based on the transcript, the outline, additional research that I've done, and my own experience on what works to talk about this topic and what doesn't. And I can, as I like to say, literarily alchemize all of those, like an alchemist, right? Literarily speaking. And then what comes out, I then send to the author. And the vast majority of the time, it's a complete wow moment for them. It's like, I said all that to you? And I, of course, wink. Yeah, you could say that.
Said most of it. I just filled in a bunch of stuff. That's really curious. I mean, how do you get into that flow state quickly? How have you practiced doing that?
There's a technique that I picked up again from my hypnosis work. It's a visualization exercise. What I have found is one of the reasons people get stuck in a writer's block state is they're thinking too much about their own emotions. Well, what if people don't like this? And what if I don't what if I don't like it? And what if they don't like it? And what if it's always like the what ifs that just pile up? And what I have learned is the unleashing of the flow state for me happens when I feel completely safe, emotionally,
Okay.
mentally. It's like when you're safe, your guard can come down, right?
Mhm.
That happens when you feel safe and secure and okay. Your guard goes down. When my guard goes down, the flow is unleashed. So the way that I do that is I'll take, and this is a specific number for a specific reason, 27 seconds. So I will, for 27 seconds, in my mind's eye, I will imagine in as much detail as possible a place that I visited in my childhood where I felt safe.
Okay.
And I will start counting 1, 2, sometimes out loud, sometimes in my head. And I try to imagine, fill in all the details. One of the places for me was my maternal grandparents' rural farm in Ohio,
Cool.
particularly this raspberry bush adjacent to the barn, and there's a train tracks in the soybean field. And so I'm 4 or 5 years old at the time that this memory occurs. And so I'll start counting and I'll imagine the raspberries there. And I'll remember going and picking the raspberries and seeing the train start to go by. And then there's a kitty cat. And I'm immersing myself in the sights, the sounds, the smell, and the taste. And even the feeling of little thorns on the raspberries. And I'm putting myself in there as viscerally as possible in my mind's eye.
Mhm.
And remember what I said about the subconscious mind? It can't differentiate the real from the imagined. And so because I'm now like playing the track of 4 or 5-year-old Joshua feeling completely safe and secure and chill and okay,
Yeah.
My body physiologically adapts to that and says, oh, we're okay now. The guard can come down and the words can come out. 27 seconds of that, and then I'm off to the races.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Why 27 seconds?
It's using the rule of three times. The rule of three is a
Okay.
pattern in nature that we see that is a fractal. That's like where the pattern repeats.
Mhm.
And it's 3 cubed. It's 3, 3, 3.
Mhm.
And the fractal nature of reality, I also use across my work, and we use in hypnosis. So there might be 3 sets of suggestions that are used in a hypnosis session, and there's 3 specific sentences within each of the 3 sets of suggestions. That pattern of 3 cubed repeats.
What? So there's 3 suggestions in a session, and then 3 sentences pertaining to each suggestion in the sentence. So this creates 3 cubes, so 27 seconds.
Yes. It's a bit like that. And there can also be within a book, maybe there's 3. Now, it may not always look like this,
Mhm.
but I will conceptualize a book as being in 3 parts. And there's 3 main topics for each of them. And within the topics are 3 examples. And the 3, it just repeats, it repeats, it repeats. And now something interesting about this is we notice in AI outputs, AI output from all of the major AI apps, they all way overuse the rule of 3 because AI picked up that this is how humans are supposed to talk. They're supposed to use the rule of 3 regularly.
Why?
It's a fractal pattern in nature where it just simply repeats. And I don't know exactly why that's the case. It just might be one of the things like that's just how reality works. But it gives a sense of completion to things, a sense of completeness. And in religion, right, there's the Trinity
Yeah.
concept, the 3 branches of government in the United States, and
Yeah.
then that pattern of the 3 essential, and sometimes there being 3 attributes within the 3 essentials, 3 demonstrations of each of the 3 attributes within the 3 original, and it repeats like that, the rule of 3. And I try to use that as much as possible in my work, both in mental performance and also in clients' books.
That happens in music too. Chords are usually 3 notes.
Yes, that's right. And often songs will be the 3 notes, and there'll
Yeah.
be 3 primary chords that are used in a song.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know like I used to write songs and do this kind of stuff.
Oh,
And
cool.
like I know Elton John was like a master of just changing keys and you wouldn't even notice. And it must be something to do with this where it's just going through different chord progressions and then just finding a way to slide in between keys even. On a similar line, I guess.
And it's probably that those people who are masters of their domain or who do something that seems to be otherwise magical, they discover it sometimes out of curiosity, admittedly. Other times, like in my case, it was out of necessity,
Mhm.
which is, oh, gee, I think I took on too many books. Joshua said to himself in 2017, 2018, how am I going to do all of these books? I think I can do it. What if I found possibilities? What if I found a way that I was able to write all these books at once and they were all better than I thought possible? What would I have to be doing? And that sort of open-minded to the possibilities and opportunities kind of led me to, well, how do I get into state to be able to write really well, a lot, really fast?
Mhm.
And it was around that time I independently began reading about hypnosis and started getting my first hypnosis book clients that they had like hypnosis practice or something, and they wanted to talk to somebody who was curious or even familiar with their profession to write their book. And that happened to be me. And that's when the ghostwriting and hypnosis professions for me began to come together, and they've been a tight cord ever since.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I almost wonder if books and stories have been written that way. I mean, I know there's always kind of 3 acts to a story. And there's the Star Wars trilogy. Everything seems to follow this pattern of 3. There's the Godfather trilogy, but the 3rd one doesn't really count because it was garbage. So that would have
They
been better
tried.
as a
They
2.
they tried to
They did try to trilogize it, and it just didn't work. That might be the only failed trilogy.
Well, there's the Star Wars trilogy that Disney came along and oh yeah.
That's the new trilogy.
Yes.
I think we can just forget about that one. That's incredible. I mean, how do you find clients these days? Like, what's that process like?
Very early on, it was posting my availability on freelancer websites.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the very, very earliest was my own novels. And that gave me an advantage I wasn't expecting, but in hindsight, it makes complete sense. One of the reasons it's difficult for most ghostwriters, aspiring ghostwriters, to break into the profession is, oh, I'm a ghostwriter. I can write your book. Oh, really? How many books have you written? Well, none actually. You would be my first. They get ghosted. I never had that problem because from the before I was even a ghostwriter, I had not one but two books, and that was my proof of concept. And they sought me out. I loved your book. Can you write my book like yours? Because I want to be like it's fiction, like it's interesting. But of course, it's like my memoir, so like make it true, just make it interesting. They want to know their life meant something. They don't want to read a Wikipedia article where it's really boring and they themselves get bored. Um, so that was my first batch of clients, let's say, and then there was referrals from those, and then referrals from the referrals. And then I started thinking, okay, I'd like to get more clients than just the occasional one here. And I was freelance writing a bunch of different things. I was ghost writing blog posts for founders and white papers and speeches and video sales letter advertisement scripts, product descriptions, basically named resumes and cover letters. I was doing everything that you could possibly get me to do. Very early 2018, January, I had 27 different clients, for each of whom I wrote one thing that month, and none of them were repeats or like retainers. They were like once-offs, or maybe a couple of months later, someone would reach back out for something.
Mhm.
And like that's not a sustainable revenue type of business where it's like every month you got to start from scratch. So I thought, okay, I need to get longer term clients. The book ghostwriting, when it does happen, that seems to be a little bit more reasonable and reliable. Then something interesting happens, more interesting even. That was like a foreshadowing moment for what was to come. Right around that time, building funnels and getting into digital marketing kind of became really popular because of a software called ClickFunnels that had
Mhm.
sort of proven that you can become a multimillionaire as a digital marketer, as an internet marketer, whatever business that you're in, by sort of building the fundamentals of online funnel marketing, where it's like, okay, you go from seeing an advertisement on Facebook to the landing page where there's a free video workshop, which you have to put your email in for. You then get access to the workshop because there's an email. Now you get 5 emails in subsequent days. Email number 4 is the product offer to purchase. Then there's 5 is the reminder. You go then to purchase. Oh, wait, there's more. Upsell. That's a funnel,
Got
right? And that's even to this day, the fundamentals of online business, frankly, even if you're selling services and whatnot. And so I got a few clients who were building internet marketing funnels for their own product and their business across industries, like whether it was financial services type of businesses, or it was selling products like supplements,
Mhm.
but they all wanted to do the internet marketing thing. And so I then start going to conferences where my clients and clientele are inviting me to come out and meet some of their friends, and maybe you can pick up a client or two, Joshua. And then I had a repeat moment of early in my career where people were saying they wanted me to write their book, right? Oh no, they were saying, "Oh, Joshua, shoot, my book just came out. I hated the process. I think my ghostwriter kind of sucked. And I can't even read it. It's kind of embarrassing. But I paid him. I had to do it. I just wanted to get it over with. And now it's out. I really wish I would have met you earlier." I hear that 2 times. I hear it 3 times. I lose count after about 5 or 6 times. And
Mhm.
then I'm pissed,
Mhm.
thinking they chose the wrong person. Admittedly, their story. And I hadn't even read their book, so I wouldn't know. But they were very nonplussed with the ghostwriter choice that they had made. Why hadn't they chosen me? Because they didn't know it existed. Okay, so I need to step out of the shadows. And that's in 2018. December 2018, I'm reading an article, and I think it was The Guardian. This is where AI comes back in.
Okay.
I think it was The Guardian, and there was an article about this interesting tool called GPT-1. GPT-1, and it had a sample output from this thing that OpenAI was putting together, and Elon Musk was involved in helping fund this nonprofit. They're trying to build an AI chatbot. Can you imagine what is this craziness? Anyway, here's output of GPT-1, and it was terrible, and yet it was really good despite being terrible. It read like a high school book report if the high schooler hadn't read the book, where it's kind of nonsensical, but you can tell that they tried their best.
Mm-hmm.
And that was AI. That was machine learning 2018.
So it's like corporate speak.
Yes, and it was like a whole lot of nothing describing some news event.
Yeah.
But I had previously seen videos where there's this guy named Demis Hassabis. He's like one of the biggest AI researchers and experts in the world, going back like almost 20 years now. And he had used machine learning algorithms to play video games, classic like 1980s side scroll type video games. And he would teach these little bots of his to play a video game like Super Mario.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say, here's the AI learning how to play Super Mario. This is after 1 hour of learning. And it's like jumping up and down, jump, go to the left, go to the right, jump, go to the right, and then fall down, lose a life. Like almost like a toddler was playing it.
Yeah.
And then he goes, here is after approximately 10,000 iterations of it learning. This is how it taught itself. Boom, 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 boom. Levels over, it's done. How long did that take? 1 week. Oh no. This is 2015, 16. I saw Demis Hassabis talking about that you can have AI teach itself to play video games like a world-class player who's been playing the game for 20 years. And he was like, imagine that in other professions. And then I see it in 2018, and I'm like, oh no, here comes Super Mario taking my job. I did the metaphor, and I thought, how am I going to not just compete with other ghostwriters when no one knows who I am? How am I going to compete with Super Mario of Demis Hassabis AI GPT, I don't know, 4 in a few years? I am totally hosed, I thought in 2018. What can I do? I have to become famous, is the thought that occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to start making me be the only ghostwriter people think of when they think of ghostwriter. Or I want to write a book. Oh, I want Joshua Lisec. Not, I want a ghostwriter or maybe a chatbot or AI or whatever. No, it's like, I want a book that turns readers into clients, Joshua Lisec. And that was in my mind's eye what I saw I needed to do. So I started posting on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
The original question was how I get clients now. And this is the very long-winded 10-year-old type of story of how I got to the point now where I have somewhat of an audience online, particularly on X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Google search results, and then I'm often on television, various networks. A niche that I've found that really works for me, 2 niches actually, are health, wellness, nutrition, fitness, diet books.
Mm-hmm.
And I have even co-authored books, including like New York Times bestseller book, very high profile books with my name on them in that space. And then in current affairs, politics, particularly the American right, books getting lots of attention there. Again, New York Times bestseller. I've had a couple of books that were personally endorsed by our president, Donald J. Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance.
No kidding.
No kidding. And my name is on those books as well.
That's an insane accomplishment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And those are kind of my 2 niches, and not just being a ghostwriter, but being an author and a co-author who's built on those. People then, oh, who's this Joshua guy? I know the celebrity author that's also on the cover, but who's this guy? Look it over. Joshua Lisec writes books of consequence. He has ghostwritten more than 100 books for Shoot. This is the guy to write my book.
Right.
7 years ago, I said, I need to become famous, and I'm doing it.
I don't think you can be much more famous than being endorsed by the president.
I don't know if there is, but I'm going to try.
2 presidents.
Yeah, there
That's
you go.
the next one.
Yes, that's right.
The next president. That's incredible. I mean, it's such like it's a path. And I think a lot of people, when they're starting a business, when they're starting something conceptually, there's sort of a lack of that sort of long-term strategic planning. And it seems like you got that from the jump. I mean, is that sort of something that you learned as a kid growing up? I mean, what did you model yourself after starting a business? Because you started really young doing this kind of work. Where did you get the skill set?
A major, let's say, distribution channel for me of various skills to me was through my clients. That's how I learned about hypnosis. I had this initial skill set of can start and finish writing a good book. That
Hmm.
was my fundamental skill before I got into ghostwriting or authorship or anything. Like I had nailed that. And then it was a matter of, well, what are the primary, secondary, and tertiary skills associated with writing books on different subjects? Well, what about building a one-person practice that writes books? Well, what about getting clients and doing public relations campaigns and advertising and the other aspects of being kind of like a personal brand driven business,
Hmm.
which is what I have. I mean, the business is impossible to sell because like that's me. I also realized I can't really scale this business. I can't like do a ghostwriting agency type thing,
Yeah.
which is what most ghostwriters try to do. Kind of like the growth story or growth trajectory for a professional ghostwriter is to open an agency and hire freelancers and you can farm them out, or you got to pay the big bucks for the one. And that didn't really appeal to me because the joy that I get from the experience with authors like you is those conversations every week. It is me in the Word document or Google Doc, literally writing it myself. And I don't want to become like a manager. I want to be a ghostwriter. I want to be an author.
Right. Right. I mean, I think authors have their books ghostwritten. Like, doesn't I thought James Patterson did that? Maybe it's not James Patterson. At
There,
least I'd heard that.
yeah, there's a number of authors who sort of have a a reputation preceding them, or maybe following them. That I don't think you have written 9 books in the last 9 months, or I don't think you did that all by yourself. Right. Now, fiction it is harder to write and it takes longer to write than a nonfiction book. There's 2 books I did last year, 2024, that I did in a crazy amount of time. One of them I did in 2.5 months,
Mhm.
beginning to end. The other, 3.5 weeks of a nonfiction book, like a full length, general trade, traditionally published, industry standard nonfiction book.
How?
I'm Joshua Lisec. That's how.
How did I know that was going to be the answer?
We spent a lot of time together, Ryan,
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, we've had that conversation before, but like 3.5 weeks is insane to write a book.
Yes. Now, you might recall early on when we were working on your book, there were a couple of times where I like to use Google Docs, so it's like collaborative and we can be in it. And that's also a way to help with the timing and speed, is there's not delay in sending and receiving it. There were a few times where it was like Ryan Benson has opened the document. And like I see your cursor, and like I see you, and I'm writing, and like he's watching me write right now. This is kind of cool. I feel like a freaking aquarium fish.
I did do that. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So like you actually saw that it's me in there writing it, and in real time. It was like 2 in the morning. I'm like, why is this guy still up at 2 in the morning? Oh, he's
Yeah.
probably working too, just like me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were like the I like to have two things going at the same time. Like I need something
Yes.
in the back of my head and something in the front of my head. So I would have work in the front of my brain, and then the back of my brain, I'd have you on a different screen. I'd be like kind of seeing something happen, and oh, this is kind of cool. Watch this for a bit. Okay, now I got to do more. Oh, wow! You already wrote like half a chapter. Okay, do some more thing. And it was really cool. It was like this neat experience to kind of see this pop up in front of you. And it's all things that we had talked about. It's all things that I had said. It's all, different things, but it's just being constructed in a way that makes more sense. I mean, it's engaging. It's engaging.
Yes, and I also what I like to do is like to simulate stories so they're not just 3 sentence anecdotes. So there would be a few instances in your book's case in particular where you'd mention this, let's say Francis and Beatrice over here. They were married for 9 years and then they decided to get divorced, and then Francis this and Beatrice that, and a lesson to take away from this is blank. That's 4 or 5 sentences. Readers are not going to learn anything from that. And so I thought, okay, he had also given me this detail about Francis and this detail about Beatrice. And the lesson of the chapter I know is coming down in 2 pages from now is going to be this. So I would then copy and paste like the thesis of the chapter, which you had stated previously in our conversation. I move it up, copy and paste right in there, and I take the words of it and I have Francis say something, and then I have Beatrice say something else, and I create a conversation. I simulate actual conversations. And so now that it goes from being like a Wikipedia style anecdote to being like fiction. Oh, isn't that how I got my start in this business? And it goes from being 5 sentences to being 5 paragraphs. And then when you would open it again, you'd read it, there'd probably be 2 or 3 facts you had to correct. But it was like, actually, yeah, that's exactly what happened. It just, the kid wasn't 19, the kid was 9, and there wasn't this, it was this, and they weren't in Chatham, they were in, Toronto, little things like that.
Hmm.
That you
Hmm.
have to kind of come in there and fix the facts. So the way that I ghostwrite, unlike with some, let's say, public figures, you can't just like publish it. You need to read it first to kind of fact check it, right?
Of course.
Because I do a lot of simulation, and that's sort of how I write. Is I take the 5 sentences that the author client gave me, and I turn it into 5 paragraphs, or they give me 5 paragraphs, and I create 5 chapters. They give me 5 chapters, I create so on and so forth.
Gotcha. So it's expansion and just, building out these concepts and getting people moving through the book in a way that makes sense.
Yes, and it's like an organized or structured unfolding of everything, so it looks clean, and it's not like it's all thrown together and there's 17,000 words in chapter 1 and then there's 500 in chapter 2, and what is going on here? But it's clean and the chapters are roughly the same length. And there's a similar structure for each of the chapters, so it's like, wow, this is really put together. This is professional. This guy's got his act together. I bet he can help me. In fact, I really like the way that he thinks about things. I have never heard it like this before. Oh, what's this? There's a way to book a consultation easily with him. Oh, what do you know? Oh, it's just that one website. Oh, and it's free. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm ready. And then now you have a client from your book.
I mean, you heard it. It sounds like the best time to contact you.
Yes, I will say though that as I give interviews from time to time, and when I give interviews, generally what happens is then there are people who want to interview me about their books. So I generally don't have a problem with getting clients these days because my prediction and betting on myself has seemed to have worked. Now it's truly a matter of, oh shoot, I'm not gonna be a ghostwriting agency despite the best efforts of all the authors begging me to. So my schedule does fill up and stay full pretty quick. And then there's the co-authoring where someone reaches out to me and say, Josh, do you want to write a book with me on this? You wrote a book with such and such about this. Now it's my turn. Can you write it? And we'll write it together. And then and I have like the co-authorship kind of angle of the business, not just the ghostwriting as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I get different kinds of joy and fulfillment on both of them. A strange metaphor to think about it is when I'm a ghostwriter, I'm like the midwife. When I'm the co-author, it's like I'm the mother.
That's a good way to put it, though. I mean, you're basically giving birth to the book.
Yes, and then, my name's on. It's like 2 parents, like me and a co-author.
Yeah, yeah, right,
It's
right.
really,
No,
yeah.
it's true. That's hilarious. You mentioned something though, and this keeps popping back into my head. You mentioned that the two sort of hottest topics now are health and wellness and politics. Do you have any sort of like insight from your work in those fields that are kind of paying off as to why those are the hot topics today in 2025?
I think, for politically speaking, the cultural tour de force that is Donald J. Trump and the Make America Great Again movement and nationalist populism, which is like the ideological and philosophical underpinnings of that, which is basically, we are a nation of people whom we have to take care of. It's paternalistic is really what it is. It's like dad and the kids. The citizens are the kids, and those of us who are in the movement have an almost fatherly disposition to the citizenry. And a dad's got to do what a dad's got to do. But sometimes dad has to say, no, we're not doing that. You there, you have to leave. It's time to go. You don't have to You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And that's immigration policy, for example. So that seems to be the sort of the political and current affairs type of reason for people wanting to work with me, and write books on the subject, and also just write books, because now it's a time to create those cultural artifacts, those demonstrations of the thinking behind what's happening politically and culturally. Like, what does it mean to be an American? What do we do on the right post President Trump? These sorts of issues. How do we confront the increasing amount of violence from the far left, for example, that we're seeing? At the time of this recording, recently, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was a civil rights activist in the States,
Yeah.
and he was a friendly acquaintance of mine, and I was on his show a number of times in person. We had a number of private conversations. I really liked the guy. He was the real deal. And then, of course, Donald J. Trump himself has survived 2 assassination attempts. And a friend and I wrote the book on the investigations into that, and we hired a private team to look into it and publish as much of it as we could for the public. And those turned out to be more thorough than the Senate and House congressional committee investigations into it. A couple of yahoos from the Midwestern United States hiring a private team put together a more complete report on the attempted assassinations of President Donald J. Trump than the federal government could. And you asked, why are people interested in books on right-wing politics? I think that's probably why, is the incompetence of the official narrative and the official sources. Okay, what else can we do out here? That's on the political one. And there's other justifications and reasons for that. But health, wellness, fitness, there have been a number of technologies that have transformed how people eat, work out, think, live, work, that has brought diet and fitness back to, oh, I can do something about this. I'm
Mhm.
not a slave to my urges or habits or the yo-yo dieting. One of them, of course, is Ozempic. And this idea that, wait, you can just take a drug and lose weight. Well, what else can I take to change my life and my body and my health? And what are the other technologies and tools? And what are the new cool workout things and fads? Recently, the paleo diet became the low carb diet, became the ketogenic diet, became the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And it's a radical elimination diet that is transforming the health of people who have digestive tract issues, who have various allergies they didn't know about, if they have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, as it's SIBO, it's called, if they have autoimmune issues, anything else they got going on. And it's like, wait, I can do one thing that changes everything? And that sort of, well, what else is there in health and wellness that I don't know about? And it's the public is returning to books on those subjects to figure out, what else can I do to live longer and live better? And there's a word that's recently become more popular in the public's lexicon, let's say, called health span. Not lifespan, but health span.
Oh, okay.
And that's the amount of time that you live a healthy quality of life, and extending not just simply your health span, but your lifespan. And the non-obvious reason that that part of health, wellness, fitness, diet, nutrition is becoming popular is because now people that are kind of within our age group, like we're both millennials, right?
Mhm.
Our parents are now senior citizens, getting older, much older, or even passing away. And we're seeing degenerative disease, chronic health issues. We're seeing where that goes. And so Gen X and Gen Y, like us, and even some Gen Z, we're sort of seeing the writing on the wall in the health spans and lifespans of our own parents.
Mhm.
And it's like, that is not going to be me, we say to ourselves.
Mhm.
What do I got to do? Is it Ozempic? Is it the carnivore diet? Is it? And so now we're looking for solutions. And so there's a number of factors that go into both politics, current affairs, and health and wellness being like the 2 big hot ones right now. And me wanting to capitalize on that and realizing, if I'm going to beat AI, I need to be the last ghostwriter, the last human ghostwriter, effectively. And so the way to do that is to keep my name out there. So I'm going to write books and co-author books on the 2 biggest subjects around right now. And that seems to be working.
I mean, I think people are sick. I mean, I think all that's true, but and I think people are sick and tired of being lied to.
Yeah.
And they've had it from the government for years. They've had it from the medical organizations for years. They've had it from pharmaceutical companies for years. They've had it from everybody for years. There's like this official sort of doctrine that has to say the same because that's how we did it before. And this is, all the interest groups have been factored into this formula. And, therefore we give you this recommendation. And what we're seeing is the outcome of that. What we're seeing is failed politics. What we're seeing is failed health. What we're seeing is failed society in many cases. That's not helping people, but it's actually actively hurting people by following some sort of prescribed solution to the problem that clearly and demonstrably doesn't work, right? And it seems like that is like the underpinning of the outreach on politics, on the outreach of health, on people really starting to actively engage in these things, is that they're trying to get some sense of control and understanding of reality from a position where they've been gaslit for their lives, basically. Like they've been just told and fed bullshit since they were kids.
Exactly, yes. And the people who are those who do have what are reasonably considered proper credentials, experience, legitimate viewpoints, who understand everything you just said, but also they're an MD, or they have a master's in public health, or they're a master's in business, or they're a board certified surgeon, or they're an elected representative, or they're a state senator, or they were the county sheriff for X number of terms. They are aware of everything what you're saying, and they've seen it in their own careers, and they have purview, and they say, I got to do something. I got to write a book. And here's the alternative, the better way. I have the experience within the system, within the machine. I see the well-meaning nature of the vast majority who work within the machine, and that compassion, that sympathy towards them. And they'll say, very simply, the problem is not the motivation of the people. The problem is the incentive structure. The more money that is made correlates with the sicker people are. The longer you're sick, the more revenue is created. And that's unfortunately a systemic problem. It's a systems design problem that you can be the most well-meaning person ever. And also, one person can't beat the entire system, like when it's set up like that.
Yeah.
And in politics is very much pay to play. It is widely known that the candidate who spends the most money, together with earned media, which has a value, is going to win.
Mhm.
And so it's pay to play. Okay, you want to be a state senator? Okay, that's going to be this. Okay, you want to be a state representative? Okay, it's going to be this. And they can give you a number within a few $1,000s to say, this many donation bucks are going to be this many votes. And that there are actual formulas, ratios
That's terrifying.
for that. Yes, it is. And it's probably the same in other Western countries as well. And it's not like this is publicly known. This is just how the system works, right? More money means more eyes means more votes. More votes means you win. And that's just how it is.
I think it's terrible. I mean, it's like, I'm going to pull out my phone. I'm going to like open an app that says, buy your position in government and say, I want to be the state senator of Florida, and type in, how much money is it going to take? And it just tells you. That's basically what you're saying that you can do.
Basically, yes. But you kind of have to know.
You have to raise the money.
You have to know how the game is played. And that's why people who are independently wealthy do have an advantage. And I think there's good reason actually for private wealth to be in politics from my perspective, because you don't have to sell out. You don't have to get bought by special interests if you're showing up with your own money or large amounts of money that are from people who are ideologically aligned with you. So one of the reasons we know that J.D. Vance, a citizen and bestselling author, whom I met in 2017, by the way, and we shot the breeze for several hours and sat together
I
at
didn't know
some
that.
event. Yeah, we were talking. Someone took a picture of us. At the time, like I had hair up here and he had no hair down here, and then we switched. But yeah, we had a great time. Like, I really like this guy. He totally gets it. This is not anything like the right that I grew up with when I was a kid watching the Iraq War disaster on TV and George Bush and whatever. This is what is this? He's a populist. He's a nationalist. Oh, that's so cool. He actually cares about people of this country. Like, ironic. How ironic is that? Anyway, um, he is known for being mentored by the billionaire Peter Thiel.
Mhm.
And so people will say, oh, well, all those Thiel bucks helped J.D. Vance get into the Senate. And then once he was in the Senate, it was, yeah, yeah. And he's the kind of person who ought to be there. And so it comes down to a battle of the billionaires.
Yeah, really, right? I mean, Elon Musk did that. He like finagled his way in and started whatever it was called.
Yeah, the America PAC and doing all the advocacy and
Yeah.
whatnot. And then you kind of realize, wait a second, that is the vast majority of history has been a battle of the elites.
Yeah.
And the people are sort of caught in the middle. And we can say, oh, we should get all billionaires and the rich out of it. And it's like, it's you against the last 10,000 years of human history. Who's going to win? There have always been elites battles. The American Revolution, that was a battle between the colonial elite and the aristocratic elite of the motherland, of the United Kingdom.
My family fought on that.
Yes.
Literally.
Oh, yes?
Yeah. My great-great-something grandfather, he was a Minuteman in the Revolution.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm like OG. I'm OG American. I'm more American than everybody else here, even though I'm Canadian with an EH. But my family moved to the United States. They were Puritans. And because of religious persecution in Europe, they moved to the United States in 1634. So like way pre the United States, it was the English territories back then. So they fought in the Revolutionary War. And I'm like related to Davy Crockett and a bunch of other sort of notorious or famous characters of USA. But then they turned coded and moved to Canada. So I got stuck there for a little bit, but we're working on it. I think it's frustrating for people because it's like, we just want authenticity, right? And it's like this battle of elites that's going on behind the stage. But at the end of the day, there's sort of somebody that's put there as almost like a puppet or like a Manchurian candidate where they have to say a bunch of things that they're being told to say, but they don't actually believe anything, but they look good and they say the right things to this certain audience, right? And they're spending enough money through the donations just to get there. And people are scared of this. People want authentic people. It'd be like, fuck, like I'd vote for 50 Cent over most, if not all, political candidates out there, because at least I know that guy's authentic. He's got money, he's got a name, he's got a reputation for saying what he means. He's going to shit post against idiots. I'll be entertained, especially up in Canada. And at least it's authentic. You know what I mean? Like there's some sort of resonance there. He's an actual human being. And what I think is scary for people, especially with politics, with health, and even with books, even with content, is this idea that it's all going to become computer generated. And in this sort of landscape of 2025, it seems like things are changing so rapidly with AI. What's next? I mean, we talked about AI coming in as an author. What's going to happen for authors going forward? What's the future of this industry?
What I foresaw back in 2018, we're close to the fulfillment of that. Let's say it was a fear-based vision, or perhaps a visionary fear, but it has indeed come to pass. And what I thought was going to happen, which was that the vast majority of ghostwriters and copywriters would get replaced because the AI output, even in 2018, it was fast, it's cheap, and it's good enough. It's not great, but it's good enough. A Chat GPT subscription or Grok AI subscription or Claude, these are like 15, 20 bucks.
Mhm.
And you throw some stuff in that, it throws you stuff out back. That's good enough. That I don't need to hire a human writer. That we can let go of our in-house copywriter. That we don't need a marketing communications agency. That we don't, and that's the key. It's good enough that we. And so then what becomes important is a human editor. Because so much of AI output, it reads identical now. You'll see in the output, it uses and overuses and abuses the rule of three, for one thing. But there's M dashes everywhere. There's like little dashes, right? And there's sentence fragments. And it'll say things like, but now, question mark, here's the kicker, list. 3 things. And what else? Get this. Keep reading, a list of 3 more things. And it's like, really? And all AI output is like reading identically like that, where it's like oddly sarcastic and snarky, but it's not funny,
No.
snarky, sarcastic. And that's all AI output. So now the value is in human editors to take this AI output and make it sound human. The one exception, though, is anything that you want to have copyrighted or have intellectual protection for, specifically copyrighted like books.
Mhm.
You don't want AI produced book content in your book, or even like lightly edited to kind of, well, let's just remove those M dashes and kind of cut a couple of those sort of rhetorical questions out of it. And then maybe just kind of string the sentences together. That's still close enough to the original output, which is at the time of this recording, it's effectively the equivalent of being public domain.
Really?
Yeah, effectively the equivalent, legally speaking, from a copyright perspective. So if it is known that your book is AI output, guess what I can do? I can copy, paste, republish, no problem. No problem. So
Oh.
there's some peril if you're using AI for things that you really want to have
Mhm.
copyright protections on the output exclusively. But there's a lot of things that a freelance writer would typically do, someone even like me, that that AI, the output for $20 a month, as much as you want pretty much every single day of work for $15 or $20, it's good enough, and then have the intern on your team clean it up and just tell him what looks like AI and have him remove that, and that's enough. So there's been more and more of that, and it's getting to be a harder and harder time for aspiring writers to break into writing because their relative competition is good enough, fast, and cheap, and they're relatively slow, relatively way more expensive, but better. And it's like, but is the trade-off of the speed and the price versus, yeah, we'll just have the intern edit it, you know? And so
Yeah.
that's where that's where we're going at. So human editors who can make things be manipulated to not look like AI, it's a good time to be an editor.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd
Not so
rather,
much a writer, but definitely an editor.
yes, yes. Now I am obviously financially incentivized to say, but I'm the exception. I do believe that I am, because the type of book that I write for subject matter experts like you, it takes your life's work and experiences, which can't be found on Google.
Mhm.
Your life story, your client case studies, they're not on Google. AI can't pull from them.
Mhm.
When I'm asking you questions about your experiences, your stories, your insights, that's new content that's not found where AI can find it.
Mhm.
So it has value. And we also have to consider that as an author, your book's competition is not just Google, it's AI, people asking AI about your subject, which means it's even more important to have that closing the loop from the beginning, ungoogleable, unchat GPTable information in your book. And that's the kind of book that people are willing to buy.
So the key to a great book is having a new idea.
Yes.
You're the author of new ideas.
Yes.
Joshua Lisec, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been amazing. I'm going to have to watch this show myself like 5 times to catch everything. And our viewers are going to benefit amazingly from everything that you've said today. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And for more wonderful content, wonderful stories, wonderful interviews, be sure to tune in to the Stay Rich podcast next week. Every new episode comes out on Friday at 1 p.m. and I will see you there. Stay rich.